We're blessed to start our spring quarter of Sunday school lessons for March, April, and May. And we are beginning this new spring quarter dealing with the topic God frees and redeems. And we're thinking about the nature of God as a liberator, redeemer, and a freer. We're looking at unit number 1 for March, entitled Liberating Passover, in which the children of Israel we're looking at their Passover liberation. Today we begin this quarter with lesson number 1 for March 6, 2022, entitled The Resources to Rebuild. Our print passage is Ezra 1, verse 1 through 8, and verse 11, and chapter 2, verse 64 through 70. Now, this first lesson is truly a lesson about God's deliverance. So God frees Israel from Egyptian bondage of 400 years. And then he carries them through a wilderness wandering of 40 years into the very place that he had promised, the land flowing with milk and honey, the land of Canaan. And while in Canaan, God's people, after worshiping idols and acting immorally and ignoring God's warnings through the prophets, God's judgment came through the Assyrians, who came in, captured, and carried away Israel from their land. And then they laid waste to the city as well as the temple of God. Now, while in captivity, the Persians conquered Assyria. But then after 70 years, we come to our text, and God delivers them. And God touches the heart of the Persian king. And look at this. And he sends them back home. This is God's deliverance right here. This is where we can see the type of God that we serve. That he touches their captive's heart to send them back home. No battle, no fighting. After 70 years, God just touches the king's heart. It reminds us that the heart of the king is in the Lord's hand. And on a side note, that's why we should pray for our leaders. Because in a moment, God can turn their heart. That's what he did to this Persian king. Turned their heart and sent them back home. So as God being a deliverer, our lesson shows us that no matter how long you may have been captive, God can set you free. And listen, no matter who has you captive, God can set you free, because he's a deliverer and he's a liberator, and he gives us freedom. So put your trust in him, and no matter what happens, he can set you free.